Hi, my name is Mr. Hyde. Today's story is by Redditor Hyperobscura. I hope you all enjoy it, and if you do, I recommend you check out his subreddit, Obscuratio. As always, links are below. Now, on to the story. For the past 19 years, on the same date, no matter my address or assumed identity, I've received a deeply unsettling envelope. We all have a past, some of us a darker one than others, and while time presumably heals all wounds, it will leave behind deep scars that'll never truly disappear. Around this time of year, I always seem to revisit these lesions of old, fathomless gashes of misery and self-loathing. On a psychological level, I believe it all boils down to an envelope I received 19 years ago, the content of which is one of the reasons I relocate at least once a year. It never seems to help. No matter the identity I mask behind, no matter where I am in the world, the accursed envelope always finds the right mailbox. This should make me paranoid, anxious, and terrified. Instead, it turns me into an alcoholic pseudo-philosopher. I had been drinking for days, possibly weeks. I never really know how it will affect me before it happens, you know? The dreaded day always looming in the periphery, its dark call beckoning me into pits of mindless depravity and despair. If I wasn't so goddamn hungover, I'd find the depressing poetry of it quite breathtaking. "You can't sleep here, man," a scruffy-looking middle-aged man explained. "It's a fucking dumpster, for Christ's sakes." He was right, it was a dumpster, but I'd argue they make perfect makeshift beds for when you're too drunk to find your way home, or find anything. I was in no condition to put my point across, however, so I decided that for the time being, I'd be better off following his unsolicited advice. "Where the fuck am I?" I mumbled, dragging my body over the edge of the dumpster and doing a terrible job of landing on my feet. "In a fucking back alley, man. What does it look like?" "Looks like a fucking back alley," I said, but I'm more interested in how I ended up here. He threw a couple of boxes with what, judging by the sound, was empty glass bottles into the dumpster and helped me get back on my feet. "The bouncer probably bounced you," he grinned toothlessly. "That's his job, you know?" I nodded thoughtfully. That scenario definitely had me written all over it. I thanked the mysterious stranger by punching him in the nose, and set out to find the assumed business of which I was forcibly removed from. I remember the first time I opened the envelope vividly, 19 years ago, almost to the day. For a long time, I had been aware of how empty the house had become, how empty I had become. The envelope was just an envelope back then, mail, no feelings attached to its dull, lifeless surface. The content sent shivers down my spine, vomit to the back of my mouth. I tried for years to hunt down the sender, but there was just nothing to go on. It's perhaps that particular aspect that bothers me the most. The fact that he finds me every year regardless of identity and location, or it could also be the content, or the Pavlovian reaction to the envelope's appearance. So many unanswered questions. I stopped outside what appeared to be a bar. The faded sign above the entrance stated that this was the House of Crazies, and that they held open from dusk till dawn. I possessed no electronic device in which to accurately predict time, but the sun, which was hovering mid-sky like a big old jerk, gave me the impression that it was before dusk, and after dawn. The door was unlocked, however, so I sauntered in regardless. The surroundings seemed familiar. A dark, marble-like floor, polished and cold to steel, centered in which was a splendid mahogany bar counter, adorned by a dark red neon sign, proclaiming that this was the blood station. Horror-inspired paintings and sculptures emphasized the ridiculously tasteless interior style, like a deformed dot over the gimmicky eye. A lanky young man stood behind the counter, grinning madly in my direction as I stumbled toward him. His incredibly shiny bald head was only overshadowed by the amount of piercings dangling from it. "He said you'd be back." He gave me a weak nod. "Said you couldn't stay away." "Who?" I mumbled confusedly. "Do I fucking know you?" "Gave me $500 to tell you a story." "What the fuck are you talking about?" "The man with the envelope," he whispered hoarsely. He said you'd know what that meant. I grabbed him by the neck, pulling him in real close. I'm assuming that my breath must have reeked of alcohol, vomit, death, and decay, because his otherwise cheery demeanor suddenly faded. "Where is he?" I demanded. "Who is he?" "Calm down, man," he whimpered. "He isn't here anymore. He just gave me the money and told me to tell you the story." I released my grip momentarily, the absurdity of the situation not lost on me. It all felt so familiar though, like I'd been down this road before. "Story?" I asked. "What fucking story?" He shrugged. "Fuck if I know," he said. "He told me you'd understand though." "Go on then," I said, sitting down on a vacant bar stool. "Bring me a bottle of scotch and lay it on me." From what I could gather, the main character of the story I was currently enjoying was either Denver, Dallas, Dodge, or Dirk. He was either extremely tall or unusually short, and had blonde or black hair, or maybe he didn't. He was apparently anywhere between 20 and 50 years old and was addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol, or some combination thereof. This Denver, Dallas, Dodge, or Dirk had a girlfriend named Donna. Together they injected, digested, possibly inhaled most of the drugs known to man, and generally did everything to avoid facing reality. Prostitution, petty theft, robbery, you name it. Down the line, they naturally accumulated a sizable drug debt, one of which they were constantly struggling to pay off. Fingers were broken, black eyes applied, toenails removed. But to no avail, addiction is a lifestyle you embrace, body and soul. Physical pain is easy. You can get used to that. Dealing with your own shitty life sober? Now that's the real torture right there. There came a time though, when no one wanted to deal to them anymore. The rumor had spread to every drug dealer in the district. Absolutely no one wanted anything to do with the couple. The situation was precarious. Denver, Dallas, Dodge, or Dirk went out one night to make one last desperate attempt to score something. Several hours later, empty-handed, he returned to the cardboard box of a shithole they occupied, only to find a scene that would have sent him spiraling into madness if he wasn't already there. The place was in shambles, more than normal. Lamps broken, pillows torn open, couch upside down, tables and splinters, blood on the walls, ceiling, and floor. And in the middle of it all, centered as a macabre piece of art, Donna's body. Donna, already worn thin after several days without a fix, had completely freaked out. She trashed the place looking for any substance she could inject into her body, but found nothing. Hysterical and driven by torturous despair, she'd use a kitchen knife to cut her wrists. Without having the right technique or luck to slice through any major arteries, a dozen wounds on each arm emphasized this fact. She had then stabbed 4 needles into her ear canals, 3 of which had penetrated the middle ear, while the 4th had found its way into the inner ear. She'd most likely tried to replace the physical and mental craving for drugs with extreme pain. It didn't work. We've been over this, it never works. She then went on to use a lighter to burn away every single hair on her body and parts of her nose. According to the investigators who arrived first at the scene, the smell of burnt flesh lingered in the air, but it didn't stop there. Driven now by unrelenting madness and pain, she'd methodically begun to rip off pieces of her own flesh with her teeth. She concluded the extreme ceremony by digging out her left eyeball with a spoon, previously used to prepare heroin. The weird thing, though, was that the eyeball had disappeared without a trace. They couldn't find it anywhere. They figured she had died from the blood loss, and gallons of it splashed across every inch of the place could definitely support this notion. The autopsy, on the other hand, unveiled that she had died from something as trivial as suffocation, and in her throat they found the cause. Yes, you guessed it. Her eyeball. "Well, that's just fucked up," I said drunkenly, having emptied the bottle of scotch during the tale. "Seriously, man, what the fuck?" "Hey man, that's the story," he shrugged, the mad grin suddenly returning to his face. "You said you'd understand." "Well, I fucking don't," I snarled, tipping over the bottle childishly. "Fuck you. I'm out of here." I don't know what I was expecting. A reaction, a veiled threat, an unveiled threat, something. But he didn't even flinch. just smiled as I flipped him the finger and stumbled towards the exit. Before I left, though, I threw a glance back at him. A question lingering in the back of my mind, forcing its way out. Hey, what was his name? What did he look like? The barkeep shrugged. Never gave me a name. Some old geezer. Nothing special about him. Real sad eyes, though. I nodded and dropped a $100 bill on the floor. Thanks, I muttered as I left. The sky was dark, the big old jerk of a sun all but covered by depressing clouds. I stumbled back to my shitty residence, this time around an abandoned cabin, in the pouring rain, contemplating this surreal story. It wasn't true, was it? Could it be? The world is a fucked up place, populated almost exclusively by fucked up people. Anything can be true, and nothing can be true. I crashed on the couch the moment I found it. The dreamless sleep by this point, my only escape from the acidic shithole of my puke-black mind. There are no winners in life, I noted pseudo-philosophically. Just fucked up people and a fucked up existence. I don't know how long I was out, but I knew it didn't matter. I woke up precisely when I was meant to. Was there a knock? Maybe a slight poke to my ribs, a whisper in my ear, I can't really say, but I jolted awake, possessed by a very familiar feeling of dread. The front door was wide open. A fresh set of muddy boot prints running all the way to the couch and back again. A single item left behind. The only thing in this life I truly feared, loathed, despised. The envelope. I grabbed it with trembling fingers. I wanted nothing more than to just throw it away, dispose of it, forget it ever existed, but I never could bring myself to do it. I always had to open it, like some junkie craving his next fix of gruesome morbidity. The content dropped onto the floor like so many times before. It was never identical, but it always caused me to double over in disgust. A severed finger this year. Deformed, blackish in complexion, only vaguely humanoid. The unmistakable stench of death entered my nostrils almost immediately, and I instinctively buried my face in my sleeve. Always a body part, a severed piece of someone, of something, a reminder, a threat. These are the questions that have haunted me for 19 years. But this time it was different. This time the envelope contained more. A simple, handwritten note. It is almost over.